If you watched my summer special video, what, you didn't watch my summer special? You were on holiday? Oh, well, go along and have a look at it. I'll tell you what, I'll put a link in the description below. I don't know, it's about 50 minutes of complete guitar building. Anyway, or repairing, I should say. Anyway, back to today. When I did that guitar, I also showed you my daughter's guitar and said that although it had got the Fender name on it and it said it's made to the Fender spec, the fretboard was painted. And well, a few of you commented, Dave, why don't you put a veneer on it? Because I sort of mentioned that, and I thought, well, do you know what, if it was painted before, let me try and paint it again. Well, I had a go at it, and well, as you can see, it was an absolute disaster. So I'm going to take these frets off and I'm going to put a veneer on it. Okay, so I'm going to take these frets out. Usual approach to this is heat them up with a soldering iron and then just lift them out gently with this tool here. Once I've got them all off, then I'll knock this nut off and try and get this fretboard flattened a bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to check what the radius is so that when I come back to it, I can put the radius back on. Let's do that. I have literally spent the last 10 minutes trying to find my fretboard radius gauges, and I was beginning to doubt that I'd ever bought any. I went through every drawer that I could think of. I've been looking at this board thinking, where the hell are they? And they're right in front of me. Look at that. So I'm going to stick a sign now, fretboard radius tools. I was beginning to think I'd have to go back to my old paper copies. Now then, what have we got here? Well, we've got a 16, 7, 9. I think it's going to be... Actually looks like a 9. Yeah. Well, it's a 9.5. So, yeah, okay. So a 9.5 radius. That's fair enough. Yeah, it's actually flattens out a bit there, so I'm guessing that's going to go to about a 12 at that point there. Yeah, perhaps not, perhaps 10. Yeah. I think I'll get away with a 10 all the way down, to be honest with you. So I'll make a note of that. Okay, I will also take the tuners off, but get the frets out first and then sort that out. And of course I've still got solder on it, which is really useful. I've just made myself a cardboard protector just to go round there so I don't damage the top. I'll try not to damage the top. Let's put that there. Okay, just a few more to take out. I find that when you're taking frets off with a pair of clippers like this, the best way of doing it is just to let the clippers do the work. So rather than trying to pull up, just clip them together and let them pull the fret out. And I find it comes out much easier then. Good. Let's take these off. I'll just see if I can get the nut off. So I want to just warm it up a little bit. Let's get some paper to protect that. Is that done? I want to protect this headstock, so got myself a bit of cardboard there, and I've got this what was my first attempt at making a peg bag. Yes, I've made a peg bag. It doesn't do my guitar building street cred much good, but yeah, there we go. Right. Let's oh, I just managed look at that. I have literally just got these out of my box of rubber bands, and they have got themselves in a knot. Look at that. They were all separate a minute ago. So let's get that down there. Okay. Right. Oops, that's a lot of good. Okay, so that's got some protection on it. I think the first thing I'm going to have a go at is trying to scrape some of this paint off the fretboard, just to see what it's like underneath. Looks quite nice. I don't know quite why they darkened it, but let's have a look. Okay, right, now I'll be honest with you. Now, obviously this fretboard, it's got the sort of colour of beech. It's sort of a bit of a pinky colour, which obviously doesn't go with the top of the guitar, which I can see why they put stain on it. And that's sort of a reddy colour at the side there. But it's got a really nice binding on it. And I think if I take this binding off, or take this fretboard off, I'm going to make such a mess of this guitar. So I've been experimenting with some stains. I've got a black stain, I've got a cherry stain, and I've got an oak stain. And I think the stains, because they soak into the wood, are going to hold better, not be rubbed off quite so easily as the covering that was on there before. It's just a question of what we go for. And I've got a bit of a problem in that I can't really test it on here without mucking it all up, and obviously different woods are going to react differently. This is a piece of it's either maple or ash, I'm not quite sure. Oh, here's a difficult one. Obviously the black in one way is the easiest to go for, but then I rather like the brown. Okay, so let's do an experiment. I've got some Solar Lux Stain Cherry here, so let's try putting some of that on this piece of wood here. It's got a similar grain, it's not exactly the same. So that's giving me a brown, and presumably the more coats I put on, the denser it's going to go. Now then, let's try the black. It's a very blue black, but I'm just wondering what happens if I get a stain, a bit of a mixture between the two. If I stain it brown and then go over the top with black. That's an interesting one. I mean, in a way, if I start with brown and then go to black, I can't really lose, because I've always got the option of going black. But if the brown takes and looks good, then I can stick with that. Now I've taken this down to 240 grit, so it's nice and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and put some brown on. Wish me luck. Wish me luck. If all else fails, we are going to have to take it off. Well, this is going to have to go darker, obviously. Right, what I'm going to do is let that settle in a bit and then give it another coat. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm liking that already. That looks really nice. Bit of oil on that, and wow, I think it's going to look really special. I will put another coat of the stain on. Just let that soak in a bit. Well, it's been a few days since I last put some stain on this neck, and I sanded it down to 240 grit in between coats of stain, so I think it's looking reasonably good now. So I've got some Danish oil, and well, I'm going to put some Danish oil on it. So let's get this open. It's always nice when you put the oil on. He said, let's hope it's nice this time. Whoa, look at that. Look at that. Doesn't that bring the grain out? I mean, that's one of the things about this fretboard, is there is a lovely grain on it. So again, why they painted it in that sort of dark black paint, I just don't know. That really does look smart. So what I'll do, I'll put a few coats of this on. I'll let it dry well in between, and then it's a question of putting the frets back in. Right, well, I've given this about 10 or 12 coats of Danish oil, and I've also sanded it back with some wet and dry 2500 grit, and polished it up. So that's all done and dusted now. I'm going to put the frets back in, but before I do that, I need to check that the neck is true, and to do that I use my fretboard level tester. Now this is a straight edge here, so the first thing I do is adjust the level tester so that if I press down on one end and tap the other, I don't get a noise. So just very slight adjustment. There we are. So I know that now is level. I can put this onto the guitar and do the same thing. And as long as I'm not getting any tapping noise, I've actually been adjusting this just before I started filming. And so that's pretty good. I mean, just to demonstrate it, what I will do is I'll turn this truss rod back a little. And you can hear that I've got a tap. So if I take it back to there, I'm flat. So now I can work on the frets in the knowledge that this is a flat fretboard. Now, I know you probably say, well, Dave, hang on a second, there's no frets in the fretboard, so why don't you just use a straight edge? Well, that's true, I could have done. But of course, once I've got the frets back in, I'm going to have to use a slotted straight edge, which I don't have, and are quite expensive. But this thing, this little tool here, will tell me, once the frets are in, whether that neck is still flat, or, as I suspect it will be bowed backwards. But we'll find out. I'll put this to one side. Now I've got some 2mm wide fret wire, which I got for the vintage guitar repair that I did in the summer, my summer special. What? You've still not seen it? Go, pop along and have a look. Anyway, back to this guitar. Okay, so here are my set of tools. Some modified pincers here, which I use for cutting the wire and for trimming the ends. I've got a file here, and on the vise over there is my fret tang filer, so that's going to get rid of the tang so I can go between the bindings there. Got my little brass hammer here to give it a thump in. I don't need those. And I've got this little tool here, which is just a hacksaw blade stuck in a piece of wood, which I use to clean out the slots. I'll also need a little V-file, which I will use just to open up the tops of the slots, just to enable the frets to go in a little easier. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is cut some frets. So the first thing I do is just scrape out the slots just to make sure there's no muck in there. I've done one side, so now I've just come around the other side of the bench and I'm doing the other. Now I use this triangular needle file just to make a little groove at the top there, just to help the frets slide in. Now it's just a question of repeating the same process over and over again, and that is, first of all, to mark where the tang needs to come off with a red marker pen, and to file off the tang with my little jig here. So I slide that into the hole and it comes through and I can see the red marker, and file it. That's it, that's gone. Whip it round. Same on the other side. That's done. Position the fret in the slot, like so. And give it a tap. Well, I've just got to repeat this for all the rest of them, so I will catch up with you in a bit. It's always a bit of a fiddle when you come to do this filing with an acoustic guitar with the neck on, but it's just a question of having a bit of patience and doing it slowly. Oops, he says. Right, well, it's another day, and I'm just using this flat file here, which has got a smooth edge on each side there, just to take off any burrs that I've got on the ends of these frets. So just a question of very gently rounding that end off so it's nice and smooth when you run your fingers up the side there. I'm going to be putting tape on the fretboard so I can do the levelling, but before I do that, I just want to check that by putting the frets in, it hasn't altered the flatness of the fretboard. So just resting this on very gently, tapping each side. In actual fact, it hasn't changed it at all, really. Usually when I put the frets in, you get a bit of back bow, but that hasn't done that at all. So that looks pretty flat. Let's get on and tape up the fretboard. That's quite interesting because most of the time I find that there's back bow introduced as you put the frets in, but this time no back bow. Interesting. I haven't glued these frets in. Now it's one of those things that sometimes I do glue them in, sometimes I don't. The frets went in fairly tight, and I sort of think by the time you've got the strings on, you're putting pressure on them, so I'm not sure that it's necessary in this case to do that. Just remember that I'm also making my life very difficult now because I haven't put tape down each side of the neck to help me get this tape off. But do you know what? Let's deal with that when we come to it. I'm not the best person to show you how to do fret work, I'll be honest with you. There are so many people out there who do it so much, well, do it far better. Ben Crowe obviously is one of the greats in that respect. I do also like, I think it's Shock the Fox, the way that he actually polishes the ends of the frets before he puts them in. Very clever idea. You can check out his videos. Some fantastic guitars there. Right. Time to mark them up with a blue pen. Okay, let's see how level these frets are. I've got some 320 grit paper on this levelling beam. I'm just going to run it across it. Well, according to this, I've got a couple of frets that are a little bit lower than the ones around them, just there. Let me see if we can use the fret rocker to see that. Yeah, so that one's a little bit high. That one's a bit high. I've gone up and down with the fret rocker, and yeah, there's a little bit of rocking every so often, but not very much at all. So I think I'm going to call it a day for levelling and start dressing these frets. So we were visiting Wells in Somerset a while back, and there was a little hardware store there which sold these files, triangular file with very fine teeth. And so I snapped one of those up, and what I've done is I've ground down one of the edges so it's smooth. So now I should be able to use this just to crown the top of this fret, and hopefully it won't put too many marks in because it's quite a fine file. Now, what I haven't done, ladies and gentlemen, is re-ink all of these frets. So before you go any further, Dave, put some ink on them. Otherwise you can't see what you've actually done. Now I've just got a bit of 320 wet and dry, which is dry at the moment. I've just got it on a plastic card here, and I'm just rubbing the sides just to get rid of the marks of the file. I'll go this way all the way down the neck, and I'll come around the other side and do the other side of the fret. Now onto some 600 grit on a soft pad, and give it a good rub. I went down to 1200 grit with the sandpaper, just on a piece of foam. Now I'm just going to polish it with the Dremel. Okay, that's all done. Now let's get this tape off. And this is where it really helps if you put a strip of tape down each side before you put this on, because now I've got a bit of a fiddle taking it off. So I'm going to get on with this, and I'll get back to you in a few minutes. Right, well, I've polished all the guitar up and all the frets, and they look really nice. So what I need to do now is just fit this nut back, and before I do that I'm just going to check that it is set right. Just draw a line there. Let's have a look. Yeah, and that's spot on. So I'll get rid of that line. Just glue it back with some super glue. That's that done. Now it's just a question of stringing her back up and seeing what we get. So I understand the way to do this is you pull the string through, you then pull it back one fret, and then you tighten it. And that's it. Well, it'll take a few more goes before it stays in tune, but yeah, sounds nice. So I'm just going to leave it to settle a bit and retune it. But I think the fretboard certainly looks a lot better than it did. So yeah, really pleased with that. Anyway, well, thank you very much for watching this little aside video. I'm getting on with the Jurgen challenge, so I hope you'll join me for those videos. And well, why not dig out that old guitar and do it up? And if you miss my vintage guitar do up, I'm sorry to keep plugging it, but why not go back and have a look at it? It was a good project to do. Anyway, see you soon. Cheers.